my friends. Today there is intense discussion about the situation in Avdiivka. Many are beginning to realize that the situation is truly critical. It's like Bakhmut #2, though with a different approach. The Ukrainian Armed Forces are doing the impossible, inflicting heavy losses on Russian forces in terms of equipment and personnel. But they've been given a mission to take Avdiivka at any cost, much like they did with the Bakhmut. Today, they are paying a high price for this, pushing forward aggressively. Because of the continuous waves of attacks, they are gradually making progress. Initially, they couldn't make any advances, but it seemed that the movement has begun nearly 2 weeks later. Breakthroughs of several kilometers over the past few days indicate that encirclement around Avdiivka is slowly closing in. Today, the occupiers are attempting to move closer to the coking chemical plant to approach the city from the north. Capturing the plant is of great importance to them, so the shelling and numerous attacks continue without pause. Furthermore, yesterday's reports confirmed that they managed to advance 600 meters closer to the railway. In the area of Svatove, they've already moved beyond it and are approaching the village, with battles reported at its outskirts. Additionally, after successful advance into Severne, they haven't halted their attacks on the village and are bombarding it heavily. If the Russians were struggling with reserves, they wouldn't be launching attacks in other directions. However, we can see that they are also attacking the outskirts of Avdiivka. Although there are no advances here, all their attacks have to be repelled. In the Nevelsky area, battles are taking place on the village's outskirts. Overall, we are waiting to see how this will conclude, and we have faith in the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Further south, the occupiers are not sparing any manpower and continue to advance both on the outskirts of Marinka and toward the village of Pobeda. Battles are ongoing on the outskirts of Novomykhailivka, but there are no advances. But before we continue, I kindly ask you to share this video on social media and watch it until the end. It would greatly help promote my channel. Thank you. In the Bakhmut direction, the occupiers continue their attacks. Fierce battles are ongoing in the areas of Klychyivka and Andriivka. However, this situation has become so complex that there are no reports of advances even beyond the railway tracks, which is in stark contrast to previous updates. Despite the intensity of their attacks, all assaults are being repelled and the front line remains unchanged. The number of Russian offensive actions is overwhelming. On the northern flank, they persist in their attempts to dislodge our forces from a 5-kilometer section of the front. So far, they haven't achieved any progress in this regard, but the difficult battles continue, and they are not sparing manpower or equipment. In the Siversk direction, shelling continues, but at least there are no ongoing offensive actions here, and the front line remains stable. In the Kherson area, the occupiers persist in their attacks on Makivka. Although shelling occurs along the entire front line, the Russians have not achieved any success and the front line remains unchanged. The Ukrainian Armed Forces report that the Russians are incurring significant losses as a result of their storming operations. In the area of Svatove, battles continue near the village of Nadiya, and there is no change in the situation. The occupiers are suffering losses and holding their ground. In the Kupiansk direction, battles persist for Senkivka and Ivanivske. Moreover, a significant amount of shelling is ongoing along the entire front line. However, the Russians haven't achieved significant success. They attempt to advance tactically, but the Ukrainian Armed Forces counterattack, causing positions to change hands. As for the Kremlin, they've announced exercises involving their strategic nuclear deterrence forces.
Товарищ Верховный Главнокомандующий, в соответствии с планом подготовки Вооруженных сил Российской Федерации, под вашим руководством проводится тренировка по управлению вооруженными силами Российской Федерации, в ходе которой будут отработаны задачи нанесения массированного ядерного удара стратегическими наступательными силами в ответ на ядерный удар противника. Порядок проведения тренировки доложит начальник Генерального штаба генерал армии Герасимов Валерий Васильевич.
Пожалуйста, Валерий Васильевич.
Товарищ Верховный Главнокомандующий, к тренировке привлекается подвижный грунтовый ракетный комплекс ракетных войск стратегического назначения ЯС, ракетная подводная лодка стратегического назначения Северного флота Тула, 2 стратегических ракетоносца дальней авиации Ту-95МС.
Following this, they released several videos of their exercises. One of the Russian missiles launched from a city appeared as a show of strength. In general, Russia seems to be actively trying to intimidate with its nuclear capabilities. Okay, now let's move on to the southern directions. In the direction of Vuhledar, the occupiers continue their offensive. Shelling continues along the front line towards Zolota Niva and Prychystivka. They haven't achieved any significant results and they are suffering losses while the front line remains unchanged. In the Zaporizhia direction, this situation is complex. The occupiers have concentrated a significant amount of forces to cut off our units from supply lines, launching attacks from the flanks and intensifying artillery shelling. So far, the front line remains unchanged, but the situation is challenging. Instead of advancing, the Ukrainian Armed Forces are forced to repel enemy attacks. In the Kherson direction, shelling continues. Ukrainian forces are gradually expanding the gray zone on the left bank and attempting to establish a foothold for future southward movement. However, the Russians are actively conducting drone reconnaissance, launching artillery and aviation strikes, and deploying troops closer to the front line to counter potential Ukrainian attacks. So, we'll have to wait and see how events develop. Additionally, it was reported yesterday that the Khmelnytskا Nuclear Power Plant sustained damage from Russian drone attacks overnight. According to the Ministry of Energy, administrative and laboratory buildings had their windows damaged. It seems that the Russians are gradually probing their territory for potential missile strikes. Their situation is very concerning.
Caused by the explosion of Russian drones last night is ongoing. The shots were shot down, but many buildings have sustained damage, shattered windows, doors, roofs of the buildings. It is highly likely that the target for these drones was the Khmelnytskا Nuclear Power Plant. The shockwave from the explosion shattered windows, including those on the territory of the NPP. As of now, it is known that around 20 local residents have been injured. All necessary assistance has been provided to them. This strike towards the NPP is another reminder to all our partners of how important it is to strengthen Ukraine's air defense and how dangerous it can be when Russia can bypass international sanctions. Many components in the attack drones used by Russian terrorists, as well as in their missiles, originate from various countries, various companies, including Western ones. The effectiveness of sanctions against Russia is literally a defense against terrorism.
And that's all from me. Oh, not quite. I want to share some personal news with you. I got married today. Got married, so I'll gladly accept congratulations in the comments. And of course, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.